Here, welcome to a new edition of the Garden Report, Wednesday edition, talking about what was, frankly, one of the best games of the NBA season. Welcoming back in Brandon Rahbar from uh, Thunder Daily. This is a great time to follow the Thunder, Brandon. You were just saying it to me off the air. I, I'm not stunned by their start. I thought going into this year, wanted to be cautious about my optimism for them, but I thought they could be a home court team in the West if everything broke right. And here they are in the NBA, power rankings that they put out every week. Number 2 coming into this game, and then pretty convincingly knocking off who was number 1 in that power ranking in the Celtics here at home. Shai's an MVP candidate in my mind. A lot of young players are developing here, headlined by Chet Holmgren, who I'm sure has just been awesome to watch. And these are just two teams that went at each other with a really fantastic contrast of styles here and made for a fun game right down to the final seconds.
Did you lose me?
Oh, you got me?
Oh, I can hear you. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, just talking about the game and what was really a really fun contrast of styles there between those two teams last night.
Yeah, the Thunder, I thought going into this game, they'd won games in Denver, knocked off the Nuggets twice. They beat Minnesota, but to me, the Celtics were kind of like the ultimate test. As great as the Nuggets are, as great as the Wolves have been, this Celtics team has been the best team in the league. 15-1 when all their starters are playing. Like when you got all your guys in, this Boston team just looks kind of unbeatable. So I thought this was the ultimate test for the Thunder, and I was just really impressed with how the Thunder played. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, didn't seem to have any problem with Drew Holiday or Derek White, two elite defenders. I mean, the Celtics team, as we all know, as you know very well, is legit. I mean, title contenders, probably title favorites. So from an OKC perspective, I think it was just kind of validation in a way for if you're following the Thunder as a fan or as an analyst that, hey, this team is for real.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. And they started off this game with a great defensive attack, I thought. Just putting different bodies in different places, able to switch pretty versatilely, give the Celtics some weird looks out there, which I thought made them hesitate at times. Really threw Jaylen Brown off, especially the crowds around the rim, and he ended up having a pretty shaky game here. Drew Holiday couldn't really get to the rim, and for some reason that landed him on the bench late. Some of his early struggles in this game, and certainly, as you mentioned there, Shai, I found caught the Celtics off guard with the way he attacked them because they started with Derek White on him defensively on their side, and he was able to get by him, without much screen and roll game or, other guys helping him out to free some of those defenders. He was just blowing right by them. And then the Celtics tried to go with Holiday on that spot, and there was a pretty similar result. So, as you mentioned there, his ability to just break down maybe 2 of the top 5 defensive guards in the league here in isolation was amazing to watch. And I don't think I've seen anybody against those 2 guys perform the way he did in this game. The burst he had going to the rim just set a tone from the opening possessions of this game.
Yeah, Shai has just been on one this year. I mean, it really hasn't mattered which defender has been on him. He's gone up against some of the best defenders in the league, and he's dropping 30 every night. He's tied with Luka Doncic for most 30-point games in the league this season. He's getting to the rim, shooting from mid-range. He's got such a herky-jerky, play at his own pace style. I think it just kind of throws defenders off. Interestingly, I thought that Jason Tatum late in the game when he was switched on to SGA did the best job on him. I don't know if it was Tatum's length. I don't know if it was just because, Shai had 5 fouls and maybe he wasn't being quite as aggressive. But yeah, I thought that Tatum did the best job on Shea in that game. But yeah, this the Celtics team, man, watching from an outside perspective, I've watched some Celtics games this season, but this was the first one I like just tuned into closely as I'm in the arena watching the game from press row. And even though the Celtics lost this game, the fact that they were down 18 late in the game and they made that furious comeback, I think everybody in the arena was worried, like, oh, here we go. This Boston team is going to come all the way back and win this. Just impressive, I think, what this Boston team can do, just scoring bunches like that when it was stacked against them late.
Yeah, 27-11, the run to within 2, and I think the frustrating thing for Celtics fans after this one, and we talked about it last night, was going down 18 at the start of the fourth. This is a close game throughout, and ending up in that big of a hole with 8 minutes to go, it was an almost impossible position to land in, and they almost pulled themselves out of it, which would have been one of their most impressive comebacks I've seen in my time covering this team. But it falls just short with the foot on the line for Porzingis with some good free throw shooting, and just an incredible shot late. But I think Jalen Williams got it off over Tatum
Yeah.
there. Uh, that was just huge and probably the biggest shot of the game. Play breaking down against a tough defender who, as you mentioned, shut down Shai for 1 for 4 shooting with 3 points over the 14 possessions Tatum guarded him there. So that was an effective adjustment. I just thought the Thunder made it hard on the Celtics throughout, though. 10 offensive rebounds, not a super high number, but that kind of pressure on the rim from Oklahoma, I thought really bothered the Celtics here. The transition game that they have, and I was looking at the numbers for the Thunder, uh, relentless. And the Celtics have had some trouble guarding transition this year at times, but in this game especially, they really couldn't get back and hold the Thunder out of the fast break. And that was a really distinct number early on in this game. They were showing it on the broadcast. It took the Celtics about a quarter and a half to get a fast break point, and the Thunder early and often were getting out on the run after stops and such. And their defense is pretty impressive too to initiate those fast break runs. So the pace of that Thunder team has to be pretty impressive the way they're pulling it off this year.
Yeah, Mark Daigneault, the OKC head coach, has talked so much about pace. It's one of his talking points every single post-game presser. Very deliberate in how they play the game. And you said relentless, their defense. I think that's a perfect way to describe it. They are constantly deflecting balls, going after loose balls, swiping balls, and they run out. They're young, they're fast, they're athletic. And this is just kind of their identity. They're really good in the half court, but they're great in transition and on the break. And Shai is one of the best finishers on the break in the league. The Thunder have unlocked something with surrounding Shai with shooters. Chet Holmgren can shoot. Jalen Williams can shoot. Isaiah Joe. They've got a lot of guys now. This Thunder team used to be like back in the day. It was kind of like it was KD and Russ and no shooting. It's a totally different era for Thunder basketball. I think it's still taking some Thunder analysts and fans some time to get used to the fact that this Thunder team can shoot. They're number one in the league in three-point shooting. They're number one in the league in free throw shooting. Actually, they're on pace right now to be the best free throw shooting team in NBA history. They're shooting like 85% as a team. So they can shoot, and they're young and fast. So they're giving teams problems. And, I go back to the fact that the Celtics team is so good. And now we're looking at this Thunder team has beaten the Nuggets twice on the road, the Timberwolves and the Celtics all in the last 2 weeks. So as a Thunder reporter, I'm like, well, how seriously do we take this Thunder team now? I mean, they're supposed to be too young to be doing this.
I was going to ask you that. What does this start make you think of? Does dreams of an NBA Finals run here seriously come to the forefront? Because it's not early anymore. I mean, 23-9, it's a decent sample size right there to start the year. And I think some other teams that started hot, like Houston, like Indiana, there's always a handful of teams that start the year really good, and you're like, ooh, could something happen here? And then they fall back. It hasn't happened with the Thunder. In fact, they're they've reached their hottest point of the season with their most impressive wins coming after the first quarter finished here. So they're heading even higher in terms of their results right now. And listen, everybody around the league right now is saying, do they need to make a move? Do they need to make a move? And that seemed to be the big debate around them this week is, do you go all in on this season? And I know, you were probably there for it. Sam Presti before the season gave a little pause on that possibility in terms of trying to go out and trade for a star. And I don't look at it as much as, go out and get a Zach LaVine or, whoever else potentially becomes available by the deadline here. I look at it more as maybe a sturdy veteran, maybe a center that can play alongside Chet in there, maybe just filling a need and consolidating the roster a little bit more, not upending it and trading major pieces for a star. Because I do think this roster is worth investing in here. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I think you got it exactly right. Thunder fans, that's the big question amongst Thunder fans, and also from national talking points is what are they going to do? How close are they? I agree with you. I think if they were to make any sort of trade or go after anybody, it would be for a role playing big. Like if you were to look on paper, what is the one thing that they could really use? It's a dude that whether it's a power forward or a center, like a 6'8" to 6'10" dude who could come in, play spot center minutes, small ball, play power forward next to Chet, defend. There's going to be some teams that they play in the West, like the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, that have a lot of size. They could use maybe another big, but names like Lauri Markkanen, Zach LaVine, like the big star names that we've seen, Pascal Siakam, I don't think the Thunder are going for that. I just don't see it. Like you said, Sam Presti has been preaching patience, and maybe they cash in those chips down the road. But I think they want to see first what they have with this team. It's still a really young team, second youngest in the league. They want to see what they're going to look like in the playoffs. That's when you really get exposed for like your weaknesses in a 7-game series or maybe a couple of series. What do they need? I think they'll find that out in the playoffs. So I could see them cashing in chips next season or maybe this off season. But as for now, I don't expect a big splash. Maybe I don't know, like I've seen Isaiah Stewart, for example, floated. Like something like that makes sense. Kelly Olynyk, maybe somebody like that would make sense.
Yeah, interesting because it does seem to be a similar need for the Celtics here, and the Thunder are probably in a better position to pull off a deal like that, and that's a good thing I think for them is that they are at this point where this roster's pretty loaded. I remember looking at them coming into the season and being like, how are they going to handle this 20-man roster here with just quality guys up and down, and it ended up shaking out fairly smoothly with some of the cuts they made at the end of the roster there, like Jeremiah Robinson Earl and others. But still, you look at some of the guys like further down this roster that even gave the Celtics trouble in that game last year, like Trey Mann. You really don't even see him in that matchup last night. It's a tighter rotation, more shooting as you mentioned, Chet holding down that center spot, and then some names like Wiggins and others coming off the bench there for the supporting roles. So it feels like this roster is just in a much more focused place in terms of the rotation, in terms of who's trustworthy, who isn't at this point. You have a big salary like Davis Bertans, obviously, that you can utilize if you're going to go get like Kelly Olynyk or Stewart, like you mentioned. So they're in a really good place. And honestly, the Celtics reached this point at the end of Danny Ainge's tenure, like around 2016 to 2020, is he had compiled so many picks and drafted so many players at that point and never consolidated. And you end up in a situation where you don't have roster spots to draft that many guys. And even the guys you do draft, you have the minutes to go around for them, especially when you're this team that's starting to contend a little bit here and has a tighter rotation and not as many minutes to go to the younger guys on the roster. Like, a guy like Pokashevsky at this point, not as much time for him to just sort of play and figure stuff out now that they're winning.
Yeah, like Poku was kind of the first draft pick when the Thunder first started rebuilding. It was even before, they tanked. I mean, before they like went all in. Poku was that first draft pick before then, and there was high hopes. And when you're picking in the mid teens, you're taking home run hits. Sometimes you'll hit on those, sometimes you won't. But the Thunder now have a core of guys. I think it's pretty clear that a big three is kind of emerging. Obviously, Shai, and then Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, J-Dub. Those three have kind of become the three big core building blocks. And then you have all these guys around him like Josh Giddey, like Lou Dort, like Isaiah Joe, Kenrich Williams, that all know the role, play the role really well. The Thunder now are going for guys that, can kind of play make, shoot, handle the ball, play defense. They want all around players. They're not really going for, the traditional centers that rebound and block shots, but they can't shoot or they can't handle. They have a very clear style of play that they're going for and guys that they're targeting.
Yeah, and Olynyk makes sense in that regard if they were able to go and get him an expiring deal. So, you got to figure out how that's going to work out if you want to keep him long term. But, he hits all those checks all those boxes you mentioned there, along with, being on a team that went pretty deep in the playoffs back when he was with the Celtics with that Isaiah team there. So he's played in playoff games. He's gotten better since he left. And he's a pretty sturdy veteran at this point, a decade in his career, believe it or not. So I think he would make a ton of sense, if you're going for more of that non-traditional center. So I do want to go to the other one, though, Chet, because I had high hopes for him coming in, and he's even surpassed those right away. And I think, obviously, having the year off, building his strength, he's definitely bigger to start this year, working on his shot. That shot, the 2 threes down the stretch of this game where the Celtics were kind of hedging away from him were just as big as that Williams shot I mentioned here. But he's awesome, and he's going to be in that mix, it looks like, for Rookie of the Year here alongside Victor, which is going to be a tall task for anybody to, match Victor's hype and fanfare and what he's ultimately accomplished coming into this. And now when those guys match up out there in the West, it looks like it's going to be an event every time, especially since they are kind of neck and neck for that award.
Yeah, it's exciting to watch Chet Holmgren and Wemby. We've seen it. We saw it in preseason. We saw one regular season matchup already, living up to the hype. It was going to take Chet Holmgren surpassing every expectation and coming in and making a huge impact right away for him to even have a chance to upset the hype that is Victor Wembanyama, and he's doing it amazingly. Both sides of the ball, shooting over 40% from three. And, when you look at defensive metrics like EPM and things like that, he's one of the top defenders in the league. I just saw today he's moved up to number 2 in betting odds for defensive player of the year, which is wild for a rookie. So yeah, the impact that he's made, he's unlocked the Thunder on both offense and defense. Offense because of his spacing and becoming a lob threat, a vertical threat for Shai and J-Dub and Giddey, but giving Shai that he hasn't had before in the middle by bringing out bigs to the perimeter. And then on defense, having that rim protection and having that size. He's just been a total game changer for this Thunder team. The 2 biggest weaknesses that the Thunder had last year when they made the play-in and one play-in game, they needed some rim protection and they needed more shooting and space. And he's provided both of those in spades.
Yeah, and he's only going to get better at this point, given the age and the experience he's getting this year. And I think what's impressive, too, is the fact that a guy like him at center, and this is probably the biggest concern for him coming in, would be able to go up with a Jokic and beat the Nuggets, as the Thunder did recently, which is probably going to be the biggest challenge for him early on in his career, is trying to figure out how to match with some of those burlier centers like Embiid and Giannis, the physically imposing guys. But he has the length and the contending ability to just make it difficult on guys like that inside due to his height. And there was one shot in the Celtics game that he just pulverized Tatum. And that doesn't happen often. Tatum's become such a great finisher, physical inside, draws a lot of fouls. And this is, one of the few times all year I've seen him just completely stuffed at the rim by Chet there on that play. So this is a pretty impressive defensive unit, and he's clearly the anchor there.
Yeah, I really liked Tatum's reaction after Chet blocked him. If you watch, Tatum just kind of gave a smile like, yeah, probably shouldn't have gone for that. And don't worry, Celtics fans. He's not like, I'm actually compiling a list that I'm going to tweet at some point. Like, Chet has blocked every all-star he's faced so far, like LeBron, AD, like anytime he's going against these all-stars, he keeps blocking all of them. So I'm going to compile a list soon and put it out there. But yeah, he's just, he's 7'1" and he's got a 7'6" wingspan, and he's got just incredible instincts. So yeah, he's compiling quite the list of block shots.
What would you say your expectation is at this point? We touched on it a little bit early, but to wrap up the discussion about the Thunder here, given what you've seen so far, given what they could potentially add here, is this postseason going to be more about just figuring out how to play in the playoffs, push a team, try to go for 7 games round one, and have one of those like early Luka Mavericks runs? Or do you think this is, given the 23-9 record here, a team that could actually contend in the West in their first extended run into the playoffs here?
I guess I'm somewhere in the middle. Coming into this season, I said that if the Thunder make the playoffs, that's a successful season. They made the play-in last year. You add Chet and Case and Wallace and not much else just to gain that playoff experience. But given how well they played, given that they're number 2 in the West, by the end of the night tonight, they could be tied for number 1 in the West. And given the teams that they've been beating, I do think the expectations have risen. Like home court advantage, like you alluded to earlier, I think is definitely in play. And at this point, maybe kind of expected to be in play. But the West is so tight. There's a lot of really, really good teams. Some things could change. I would say this. It depends on who they match up with in the first round. Like there's going to be some matchups that may cause some issues. Nuggets are an issue for anybody, obviously. The Kings have kind of had the Thunder's number recently. The Timberwolves, obviously, some size issues. But I do think the expectation now, I will say this, win one playoff series this year, learn, grow, experience, still the second youngest team in the league. If you win one playoff series and then come back next season, adding more, experience and maybe going and getting a guy, I think you're set up really, really well.
I would tend to agree with that, though. I think everybody is starting to dream a little bit of what this matchup could look like if they do go on what would be an improbable run. I can't think, not that I've been covering the league for decades here, but I can't think of a team this young going the distance and reaching the finals. But of course, that first incarnation of the Thunder with KD and Harden and Russ, as you mentioned, there was pretty young itself as they made the push there. A much more talented team at the top end of their stars there, but this team's growing pretty quickly too, especially at the top with Shai, and that's usually what it comes down to a lot of the time in these playoff series is who is the best player, and in many of these, Shai will have a pretty convincing argument despite it possibly being Luka on the other side or Zion or KD. That's the tough part out west is that any series you draw is going to be a 6-7 game battle with the talent out there on that side. The Celtics are fortunate in that they're going to, if the playoffs started today, they'd be lined up against, the Cavs or the Nets or someone like that. Round one, a little bit more manageable of an opponent. But the depth out west is just incredible. So we will. I want to get your impressions of the Celtics. You gave a few of them. I want to shout out our sponsor here, of course, FanDuel. The official sports wagering partner of CLNS Media. Right now, a winning $5 moneyline bet gets you $150 in bonus bets for first-time users. Football is wrapping up. It's time to make your picks for the big game, the playoffs, all of that coming quickly there. Basketball, college, and pro rolling every night now. Hockey, whatever you want to bet on. FanDuel's got the easy app that pays instantly, and $150 in bonus bets right now. You just got to pick a team. It's easy. Go over there, check it out. 21 plus present in mass. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame money line wager required. $10 first deposit required as well. Bonuses are non-withdrawable and expire in 7 days. That's fanduel.com/Boston. And of course, it's my favorite. It's HelloFresh. HelloFresh.com slash CLNS free. And you're going to get free breakfast for life whenever you order HelloFresh. They'll throw it in the box there, prepackaged ingredients, laid out instructions that make cooking easy, as well as affordable. Definitely cheaper than the groceries or certainly going out to eat. And they make, even if you're not a big fan of making dinner, they make it a little bit more fun with, customizable options. When you want it to come, it'll come. And again, it's all fresh On ice, to your door when you want it. Love HelloFresh. Great longtime sponsor for us here. HelloFresh.com/CLNS free. What are your overall impressions? I know you were impressed by the comeback. Obviously, when this Celtics unit gets rolling, they can just be a load to deal with, and they were in that fourth quarter. But the Thunder were able to slow them down at times in this one. Challenge them when they went bigger by still being able to, physically compete with them at the rim and defend Boston's bigger lineups here. But what was your main takeaway from just seeing the Celtics up close for the first time?
My main takeaway was I predicted the Celtics and Nuggets to meet in the finals preseason. That was my pick, and this confirmed it to me. I mean, the Celtics are just loaded. I mean, you got the top end talent with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but you have Drew Holiday. Derek White has lived up to the hype. Like, I keep reading like he should be an all-star, and Celtics fans are saying he's, arguably, the second best player on the team. I keep seeing things like this and seeing it up close. I mean, like, the dude can play both sides. That's the thing. The Thunder are trending towards two-way players, and I feel like that's what the Celtics have. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Porzingis. He was incredible last night. Al Horford, Drew Holiday. All the Celtics' best guys to me are two-way players, and that's what you have to win in this league. You have to have two-way players. You can't have guys that get played off the court in the playoffs. You can't have guys that are all offense, no defense, or all defense, no offense. So when your six best guys have the top end talent, you have that much depth, and they can play both ways, I think that you're a title favorite, and I think that's what the Celtics are. I was really, really impressed. I was trying to find the weakness. They can score, they can play defense, they can shoot, they can take it to the rim. They have size, that they have athleticism, and even guys like Sam Hauser coming off the bench. Like, impressed with guys like that. Like, once you get to like your seventh, eighth, ninth guys, maybe, I mean, if you were to nitpick, maybe past that. I don't know the team as well, obviously. But I don't know what your like 9th through 12th guys are like, when they get extended minutes, if they ever do, if they need to. But it's not going to matter in the playoffs if all the Celtics guys are healthy, because they're not going to get the minutes. So, yeah, just really, really impressed. Just kind of confirmed to me what I thought, that the Celtics are one of the best teams in the league.
Did you picture 3 years ago Al Horford would still be playing at this level when the Thunder trade him to Boston?
Yeah. Yeah. So Al Horford kind of had his rebirth in OKC. He was supposedly washed with Philadelphia. And then he comes to OKC, and just like Chris Paul the year before, just kind of revitalized, I thought, his career and showed that he could still play. I don't know what the 76ers were doing with him. I don't know why, he wasn't excelling in Philly, but we were really impressed with him. To me, that was kind of like the first peek into what Shai could do with a center that could space the floor. And so when the Thunder drafted Chet, I immediately thought of Horford. I'm like, Horford was a great defender and he could space the floor, and Shai was dominant when he played with Al Horford. So yeah, and he's such a classy dude. Like, getting to cover him even just for 1 year in OKC, he was just such a classy, cool, smart dude. So I'm excited and happy for Al Horford to see him still playing so well at this age.
Yeah, and the Thunder really did a solid for the Celtics there. The Celtics were in a bad spot with the Kemba deal and the season they had just had, and that was the start of everything we've seen since. Was making that trade and Horford coming back and becoming a starting center for a finals team within a year of that happening. So I think Celtics fans are always going to owe some gratitude to the Thunder for helping them out there and just making it worth a pick that, the Thunder. I don't know. Do you still look back on that one, flipping it to Houston, Şengün, what he's doing now? I know you're not necessarily picking the same guy there, but that's a tough one. I think that he ended up going there and seeing what he's doing this year.
Yeah, Şengün has been really, really good. And, Sam Presti is like batting so well in the drafts. It's hard to like criticize, but like you said, Şengün may be the one that got away. Here's how I look at it though. Had the Thunder drafted Şengün, kind of the butterfly effect, would that have affected things? Would they have been a little bit better? So they wouldn't got quite as many ping pong balls and so they don't end up with Chet Holmgren. And
Yep.
ultimately, that's what the Thunder needed was Chet Holmgren to unlock this whole team. I think with Shai. Uh, so I think the Thunder probably wouldn't change anything. But yeah, I mean the ultimately Şengün is a really really good player. Houston got a good deal there. I think Thunder got really good value in that how Al Horford trade. So I think it was a win-win. I guess a win-win-win when you include the Rockets.
Yeah, no doubt. And Kemba seems happy out in France. I know it's still a struggle for him physically, which is unfortunate given where he was, I guess 4 years ago at this point with the Celtics, but still keeping a positive mindset out there and playing, which is what he wants to do. So I don't know if anyone's caught up with that on either side, but he was talking recently over there in France about his whole experience over the last couple of years, deciding to go overseas, and it stinks, seeing him out of the league at this point, but at least he's still able to play at this point and enjoy it. So that's always tough to think about with that deal too. It was just how that was the beginning of the end for him. He got to play in New York, which was pretty cool, but uh, didn't really go well for him after that point. So that stinks, but both these teams are in really good places. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be really interesting to watch how they evolve into the second half of this season because for the Celtics, as you mentioned, really no issues yet. They've been healthy. They've meshed early. Now they're trying to implement some rest, which I think is important and good. They were fully loaded for this one. Holiday didn't look great in this one, so I wonder what's going on there, with him physically, if there is anything. He had to sit late in this game, which was kind of strange. But, Tatum, Brown, rolling. Porzingis, though, talk about a revitalization. And that's been my favorite story following the Celtics this year is his constant dominance. And I've named a number of plays in this game so far, but I think my favorite was right down the stretch where it looked like they were out of it. I think down 4 at that point in the final minute. And Tatum kind of threw out this awful pass that he had to run out to the, sideline to recover, lined up against Chet at the free throw line. And he just kind of went into this extended post move. It got all the way to the rim, drew Chet off balance, and got 2 big free throws late before he hit the, 2-pointer that looked like a 3 but wasn't. That move against Chet, taking it all the way off the dribble from the left wing, all the way inside and pulling off a post move in there. He's number 1 in post efficiency to start this year. He's been a great defender. And in this game, against, again, a really good, versatile Thunder defense and Chet at that center spot, he got whatever he wanted. It was unbelievable to watch, beyond what he's done to start this year. This was right up there with any of his performances.
Yeah, Porzingis has been really, really good this year. It's weird to see. There's only been 2 times this season where Chet wasn't the biggest guy on the floor, and that was when he played Wemby, and then last night when he played Porzingis. Porzingis just such a big dude. When the Celtics made that trade and they lost Marcus Smart, and I know a lot of Celtics fans were upset because Marcus Smart was like kind of the heart of the team, and being in Oklahoma, I watched Marcus Smart when he played in college at Oklahoma State, so I know what he's capable of. But my thought was, man, Porzingis on the Celtics team makes so much sense. He's a really, really good player when he's healthy. He just, he hadn't stayed healthy, but when he's healthy, adding him to Tatum and Brown and Holiday, I mean, that's it's something that the Celtics didn't have that I think takes them to another level.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and that trade worked out perfectly. I guess we'll wrap it up here. Thunder, I'm gonna look at their schedule here coming up. Any games that stick out to you coming up because it feels like they've already faced the best that the league has to offer here. And yeah, as I look at it here, schedule is finally softening up for them a little bit with the Hawks, Nets, Wizards, a trip to Miami, which will be difficult, but the Blazers up after that one before they take on the Clippers and Lakers midway through the month. So they have the potential to really continue to expand this lead. Whether you're the 1 seed or home court, at least being above that play-in line is going to be important for them.
Yeah, this the schedule finally softens up. Brutal recently. There's a lot of back-to-backs this month, and they're playing 17 games in January. So, and 11 of them are on the road. So the quality of opponent is getting more favorable, but the schedule itself, as far as travel and rest, might be a challenge. But this Thunder team is beating the teams they're supposed to. Like they haven't lost to any below 500 teams besides the Warriors, and the Warriors are only below 500 because the Thunder beat them 3 times. So they're taking care of business when they're supposed to, which is another sign of a good team. So I think that this should be a month where the Thunder can continue to pick up a bunch of wins.
He is Brandon Rahbar. Check out his work on Twitter at Brandon Rahbar, Rahbar, and you can read him at Daily Thunder. Always good following your work, following you yesterday at the game, all the quotes and all the rest on the ground there. Especially, you don't always see those West teams night to night. So when you do finally see them, for a full game, or you just kind of following from afar, great to follow your work and everything you kind of do covering them day to day out there. And they don't play until April, unfortunately. Again, that's just kind of how it goes. But hopefully it'll be another good one like this, Brandon. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Appreciate the kind words. And hopefully that one will be flexed to a national TV game because last night should have been.
No doubt. All right, thanks, everybody. Celtics not in action again until Friday, so we'll be back for that one. Practice tomorrow. We'll see you from there. And check us out at Celtics All Access and CLNS Media.